What is going on, everyone? So today is a different kind of interview. I have on Matt, who represents BuyBotPro and Profit Protector Pro, at which this time is the listing analyzer and repricer that I use. Both very powerful tools, and I want him to come on to give some background and context to the software as we overview it together. Matt, thank you for coming on, man.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Right. And so I wanted to ask you first off, before we dive into this video, just if you could just give intro about yourself and just what your position is in the company.
Sure. So obviously I'm Matt, and what I do in the company, it's hard to give a job title as such because I do so much. But if I was to boil it down, I would say that I'm part of the marketing team, and I'm also responsible for all of our company's content creation. So if you've ever seen a YouTube video to do with any of our softwares, or maybe a podcast, or watch one of the demonstrations on the website, that will be myself. So that's mostly what I do.
Right. Yeah. I think you're doing more of the recent videos lately, right? Because I went on the channel a little while ago. I watched your video going through the extension itself.
Yeah.
And I think also on Instagram, right? You have the reels and whatnot on Instagram. Is that right?
Yeah. We have the reels on Instagram. Then we've also got some TikTok channels as well.
Nice. Okay. So what we're going to do with this video, everyone that's watching, is we're going to first go through BuyBotPro, which is the sales estimator, the listing analyzer. And then once we wrap up that, we'll move on to the Profit Protector Pro questions to Matt, as well as overview what it looks like, how easily to use the interface, and much more. So what I'm going to do here is jump on a Amazon listing. I should be able to present. Let's see here. So we're here on an Amazon site. After you search whatever, in this situation, I just kind of searched some Nike socks here. Really common thing that most sellers sell. One thing I noticed, Matt, that I don't think I even knew was something that BuyBotPro did. It's kind of similar to what DS QuickView does. It gives you an analysis on the Amazon search front itself, which is really cool because let's say you're trying to find a product on Amazon that you found on a retail site that you're thinking about selling. Well, instead of jumping straight inside the listing itself, you can just hover over the front here. You can see that there's 9 FBA sellers, 10 MF sellers, as well as click this open BPP right here, BBP. And you can see that it shows what the buy box price is. You can scroll down and you can see all the sellers and what they're currently have their selling price at. I want to say you can do the charts too, right? Yeah. So you have the BuyBotPro charts.
Yeah. So BuyBotPro charts, and it'll open.
So Matt, can you go through, because I've seen these charts here. Can you kind of go through what these charts entail?
Yeah, so all of the charts all of them are different. And basically what you're able to get from all of them is a full and colorful sort of like history for that particular product. So the first one is what we call the main sales chart. So that is where you're going to get the vast majority of that item history. And so it basically records all kinds of different aspects. So how the lead FBA price, has fluctuated, the Amazon price, the buy box price, how the BSR has changed on that particular listing. And so when you assess an item's history, you're able to from that history, you're able to gauge sort of patterns, how it's doing now. And then you can use that information to give you a good idea on what is going to happen for the item in the future. So for example, with that sales chart, you can sort of look for correlations between the buy box price and say the Amazon price, the FBA price. So let's say, for example, you saw that the Amazon line often lined up with the buy box price. And then obviously as you hover over, it gives you a breakdown of what's going on at that particular point in time. So if you saw those lines, constantly sort of on top of one another, that would give you the idea that Amazon are dominating that particular listing. If you were looking at the BSR, for example, that's a good way to sort of gauge how well the item sells. And so what you want from that line, which is the green line, by the way, what you'd look for in that line ideally is a lot of movement, and for it to be as close to the bottom of the chart as possible. So the closer you are to the bottom of the chart, the smaller the number the better the BSR. And the reason why I say lots of movement as well is because basically, even so, you want lots of movement because it basically reflects lots of sales. So even the teeniest little squiggle on that BSR line reflects that there's been at least one sale for the item. It could be more than one, but at least one. So lots of movement equals lots of sales. And obviously, if it's consistently close to the bottom of the chart, it shows that the item has a consistently good BSR. If you did see that there was some fluctuation with it, so if it jumped up for a time and the BSR wasn't as great, you can gauge really simply from that chart how long it stays that way. And so if you saw that it spiked and then jumped back closer to the bottom of the chart, it wasn't there for very long at all. So if you were to join that listing, let's say, and the BSR had that kind of jump again, you can be rest assured that through assessing the history, it wouldn't stay that way for very long. So you don't have very much to worry about. So there's all manner of things that you can gauge from that chart. You can change the day range as well. You can even click and if you click and drag, you're able to zoom into certain sections to get basically a real in-depth look into what was happening with the item at any point in time. And then if you were sort of learning to read that chart, or if you just wanted to basically find out about the sales of that particular item, there's a nice little summary within this sales heat map, which is currently toggled off, I believe. So just below the pink buy box toggle, it's that bar right there. And so that was something that we invented, actually. No one else had ever done anything like this. It's a really easy way to gauge the popularity and the sales of the item. So it works the same, more like it works very similarly to the temperature of the temperature in a weather forecast. So the redder the better, basically. And so where you see red, it's a very clear, easy to understand indicator that in that period of time, the item was selling really well. Where you get periods of darker red, it had a period of really intense, fast sales. Where you see orange, it's selling okay, not as good as it did in those red periods. And where you see white, that means there was either no sales or hardly any sales, very, very slow sales. So it's a very easy way to gauge how well the item sells overall. If there's periods when it's a hot seller, periods when it doesn't do so well, so you can gauge if it's maybe seasonal or something like that. But ultimately, it's a nice sort of condensed version of the chart that you're looking at above in terms of understanding the popularity and how well it sells.
Yeah, and it looks like also this it turns red. Like Amazon sellers, we love to see a listing that the price is high, the demand is low, the demand is high, the price is high, and the sellers are low. And it looks like at this point right here where it's pretty darn red, that's kind of paints the picture of what's going on right now. Is the BSR is low, the price is on the higher side based on its history, and not much sellers as well, relative to the seller history it's had in previous months. So that's cool. I don't know why it was toggled off. It'll be on from now on. Okay. Awesome. So charts are awesome. Again, this is really, really helpful, really advantageous. Just being able to look at all the information right there on the listing as you zoom around. You'll be able to know if a listing is already pretty saturated. This one has 9 FBA sellers versus this one, which has 17 FBA sellers. So good way to even gauge before even going on to the listing. And FYI, you can click Open BPP right here at the extension, and you can run through the extension information that we're about to go through without even clicking on the listing. So that's amazing. So let's go ahead and go to this listing now. Now we'll go through exactly. So I'm going to go through, Matt, what I use commonly with the extension, and feel free to interject if there's something that I'm missing, if you want to provide more context to something that I'm discussing. So before we go through this, I'm going to toggle all this off. So when I first opened up the extension, it was a little overwhelming, the amount of data, right? But it's because I don't know why, but by default, everything was kind of open. But when you toggle everything off and you can kind of understand all the information it's providing, it's just insane how much information you can really get from this extension. So first thing we see here is this BuyBotPro Island. I don't recall if it was on or off when I first installed the extension, but this in itself is pretty dang good. So like, let's say, for instance, we found this stock for $10. it automatically calculates right here on the BuyBotPro island, as well as if you go the first element of this extension will go to is this details, and it'll tell you your ROI and profit as soon as you change the price, the selling price, which is great. So it'll constantly move over here. This for this to automate, Matt, I think I had to go on the settings and change it. I think there's an automatic tool to
Yeah,
toggle on.
there's an auto analyze, which is there at the top
Auto analyze.
of the
Yes.
personalization. So that will automatically analyze the item for you, like
Mm,
right away without you having to enter anything in. So let's say if you were just looking at, if you were looking at the IP radar first to see if there was an IP issue. Obviously,
mhm,
if there is one, then that, it kind of renders the listing sort of like useless to you because you can't go
right,
and sell it. So to save you
right.
entering in all of the figures, all of the numbers, you can just do the auto analyze, it'll analyze straight away. And then if you want obviously more accurate results, you then go back and add your buy price and such.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So I think just FYI, I don't know if there was by default, but I highly encourage everyone to turn that auto analyze on so you can kind of constantly change your buy price and then at the same time check the ROI to see if it's something that appeases you. Uh, like Matt was alluding to a second ago, you can check this alerts tab right here and it'll tell you if it's a meltable. We're in meltable season, so it doesn't really matter. You can send it to FBA, but during time of the year when Amazon FBA does not accept meltables, you want this to really tell you if you can even send it to Amazon. The worst you want to do is buy something and then find out when you're trying to send it into Amazon that it's a meltable. So as long as you're signed into your seller's account, uh, the extension will, in fact, tell you if it's a meltable or not. The IP radar is really unique. I believe if there is a case of noted IP complaints from other Amazon sellers, this would turn red. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, that's correct. So basically, we've got a sister company called Getting Suspended, and they help lots and lots of clients that have suspension issues. So they have got a
Awesome.
massive database whereby they're aware and they monitor loads and loads and loads of brands for IP issues. And obviously, anything that is reported to us gets taken into account as well. To my knowledge, it currently has the biggest database of any sort of deal analyzer. That keeps a track of IP issues. So yeah, the indicator is really useful.
Awesome. Yeah, and like there's whole other separate extensions that provide just this IP alert information. So the fact that this IP radar is within the BuyBot Pro extension and it comes with your plan is very unique and very helpful. Other than that, I do look at, so we have our ASIN, UPCs. Most of the time, I'll look at my break even. It's kind of the price that we know we can at least sell and get our money back. And I'll look at the ROI and profit. I'll also, since I have been in recent history doing a lot of MF orders, I will toggle this on and you can kind of put what your shipping cost is. Let's say your shipping cost is $4 if it's a smaller item and you want to choose ground shipping. It'll replace that FBA pick and pack fee that it would have originally been accrued if you did FBA, and it'll account for that price within your ROI. So that's really cool. But this BuyBot Pro Island, I thought at first, Matt, I had it toggled off because I didn't know what it was doing, and
Yeah.
then I toggled it back on because and started looking at it. I'm like, oh, this is actually really cool. So now I keep it on. Kind of gives you, looks like what you have on your alerts, the main components of your alerts on here, as well as all your ROI and profit information. So you can just input your information here, and rather than scroll down and look down here, you can kind of look right up here, right? And I think
Mhm.
that's the purpose of this BuyBot Pro Island. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So it's all of the basic essentials taken from the main panels. That way
Mhm.
you can basically do a very quick analysis. And of course, if you wanted to go even further with that analysis, that's when you can consult the rest of the rest of the panel.
Right. Yeah, I think whenever you're sourcing, everyone, you want everything to be quick as possible. I mean, obviously slow down when you need to, but just what we alluded to a second ago, how you can just go on the front page and use their kind of overview on each listing individually and just juxtapose which one's saturated, which one's not. Then when you go into the actual listing itself, you have this BuyBot Pro Island, which just kind of brings up all the information, the relevant, significant information right there without having to dig deep in the extension itself. So they've made it easy. Also, if you want to check if you can sell some an item or an ASIN, you can click right here and it'll copy your ASIN for you. Then you can go over to your inventory and try to add it to your inventory and see if it'll let you. However, it'll also tell you if you can sell the item or not. So right here will tell you, yes, I can sell the item. Or if you're gated, it'll tell you, no, you cannot sell the item. Very useful as well. So let me close this again just to make it easier for everyone. Okay, so these are all the separate tabs within the extension. All gives very relevant and useful information. The ones that I use, I'll go over the ones that I use is obviously we went through the dashboard. Obviously we went through the alerts already, as well as the details. The BSR and price is also good. You can look at the charts to get this, to paint the picture of the BSR as well, but this is also helpful. I'll check it here and there. Let's see. Okay. The buy box statistics, check as well. This function right here, the export data, is very useful, right? So what I do is I have all my VAs, they have their own separate Google Sheets. That's where they are either submitting their leads. So for them, I think there's how many users are allowed per plan? Matt, I think it's 5, correct?
It depends on your plan. So if you're on the cheapest plan, the smallest plan, you have 5 license activations. The next plan on has 10, and then
Right.
the next plan after that is 32. So it depends which plan you go for.
Okay. So let's say you have 2 VAs or 3 VAs. What I have done is I've made them a sheet for themselves where they submit leads, and they can go on here and they can just click. So I made this one for example purposes. So this Nike listing, if I click this Google Sheet, which in the back end, I've connected that Google Sheet to the extension. I've named it BuyBotPro. My VAs have named it their own respective names. So if they can come on this listing, or yourself, if you want to bookmark a listing or whatever, you click that sheet that you connected it to, and let's go over here and see it's added all that relevant information here, right? So all the information that we just kind of went through, all the significant ones at least, and you can customize what headings you want per sheet as well. So you will get the information that you want. Really useful tool for me personally. If I see a listing that I want to share as well to my VAs, I'll just send it to their sheet, just like they're sending to their own sheets for their leads. I have an admin VA who keeps up with all the tracking information. So if I purchased a listing that he didn't submit the leads to me, so we need to communicate that lead that I purchased this lead. It's coming to the tracking, or it's coming to the prep center. He needs to record it into their tracking system. I'll click his name. It'll pop up on the sheet. So he'll know exactly what ASIN it is that's going to the prep center, and he'll be able to address and communicate with them effectively as well. So it really enhances any kind of system or methods that you have in place in your Amazon business. Very useful tool, very useful tool. Okay, so after export data, let's see here. So this VA toolbox, I haven't used it yet, but I need to. I started looking into it, I think a week ago, but then I got caught up with something. But essentially, you'll be able to, on the back end, add the VAs, your whatever staff you have, add their email or whatnot, and then they're able to come in and click start or finish and log their time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So they'll press start, a timer will start going, and it will basically just monitor the time that they work. And as well as that, which is really useful. I mean, it's really useful in general, but especially if you're hiring new VAs and you're not sure how exactly they'll work out. You want to make sure that they're performing the task that you're paying them to do. There is also a extension that you can download from the VA backend, the VA Toolbox backend, which basically will take screenshots at random. Your VA won't be made aware of the screenshots that it takes, but all those screenshots that it takes on your VA's device whilst the timer is running will be sent directly through to you at the back end. So that way you can keep an eye on what your VA is doing during the time that they are working. So that way you can make sure that they're on task.
So it's a separate, you said it's a separate extension that you have to download? That's right.
Yes. So when you go through to the VA manager and you go to set up your virtual assistant, in that section, there's a link at the top of that page that you and your VA will download. You can tell them what it's for, or you don't have to. It's completely up to you. But once you both have that separate extension, it will start taking screenshots only during the times that they work. So as soon as they press start, it will start. And then when they press finish, it will stop.
Awesome. So, like I was alluding to you guys earlier, the IP notifications, there's whole separate extension companies that only do that service. And then same with this, what he just mentioned about logging VA's time, screenshots to ensure your VAs are doing the tasks that you delegated to them. This does all that in this one extension. And similar to the IP notification extensions in the market, VA loggers, VA trackers, and whatnot, that's also a whole separate software that people will sell for a service. You get that and that in this one extension. This is kind of why I wanted to give a fair, unbiased review over this. It's insane how much information data you can do with this one extension. It saved you a lot of money, especially if you have multiple VAs like I do. I think most companies, like the VA trackers and logger companies, they charge an X amount per VA. So let's say you have 5 VAs, right? So you're paying $10 per VA per month. So this comes in with that cost for your BuyBotPro extension plan. So awesome tool, awesome tool. And there was okay. So again, this is all right. So Profit Protector Pro is something we're going to dive into. That's the same company, but it's the repricer, right? So I haven't done this yet, but essentially you can connect the extension that you have here, the BuyBotPro extension, and connect it with the repricer, which is Profit Protector Pro. And you can essentially automate, well, not automate, but you can set the minimum and maximum and the rule settings that right, Matt, to integrate over to Profit Protector
that's
Pro?
correct. Min-maxing strategy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So right now my system is, as I was alluding to earlier, I buy something, it goes to my prep center. My admin VA, he sets up the tracking information to the prep center, and the prep center will grab that information and send it to Amazon FBA. But used to, my admin VA would then go over to the repricer, then update the min and maximum. However, now you can just go in here, right on the listing, do the min and the maximum, and as well as a repricing rule setting, and bam, it's done, right? So saves a lot of time for yourself if you're doing this task, and also your VA if he's doing that task, and he can focus his time and allocate it to something that's more important. So awesome tool. So Matt, that's kind of right now the main things I look at. I do go to the charts as well, but we kind of dove into charts earlier. But I will say, looking at the charts also on the listing itself, of course, you have it if you scroll down. You have it down here as well, the charts. And we kind of dove into all that already. But you can also just get a brief overview on the right here as well. And then competition analysis, we went over that as well. You can see all the different sellers and where they're selling at. If they're FBM, maybe you can, and you look at their price and it's kind of low, maybe you know that, hey, maybe I'll send my shipments into Amazon FBA inventory and sell as an FBA to compete with the FBM seller for a higher price. So this competition analysis tab is great and excellent as well. And Matt, so that's essentially what I look at. Is there some other tabs that maybe I'm not doing a good job of either articulating, or I should look into using more for my own Amazon FBA business?
So I mean, a couple of things that I think are
definitely, and I understand you probably go through every single tab, right? But
I mean, all the BuyBotPro is useful, but obviously it's going to be it's going to be slightly different for every single seller. It's going to be subjective. There's going to be things that different sellers will find more useful. So it's different for everyone, but that's the great thing about BuyBotPro. There's so much in there that you can choose exactly what it is that you want to look at. And for some of the sellers, it might be different things. For you, it might be different things. But some of the things that I think are definitely worth mentioning is the confidence score and estimated sales calculator. So it's the BuyBox AI analysis tab, and then underneath that, the estimated sales calculator. Okay. When we do our analysis, we want to be sure of that product. And what BuyBotPro is doing with this confidence score is telling us what it thinks of the product based on its analysis. And it doesn't just pop out any old random score just to make itself look good. It will give you an honest opinion. So what this takes into account is basically in your settings, there is some criteria you can set for minimum, like the minimum ROI you want the deal to achieve, the minimum profit, and the BSR range that you want to look at. It's going to take a look at that. It's going to take a look at your eligibility, the IP, the sales of the item. It's going to take that analysis and basically pump out a score and what it thinks of that particular product. So it's kind of like a second opinion, if you will. on what it thinks of that listing. And underneath it as well, if the I don't think it's showing one there, but underneath that is the suggested purchase quantity. So if you're unsure about how much of a particular item to buy, I believe it needs to meet certain aspects of your criteria in order to populate. But basically, provided that it does meet your criteria, it's going to give you a suggestion on how many it thinks you should purchase. And so that can be dictated as well by different parts of your settings. So you can set a limit on how many, on what number it would suggest. So let's say your limit was 100. It won't make a recommendation that's more than 100. You can also enter in your stock capital as well into your settings. It takes that into account. So that's basically your overall budget that you have to spend, and it will not suggest a number that makes you spend more than 10% of your stock capital either. So it takes both into account and the analysis to give you a suggestion on how many it thinks you should buy. And obviously you can go ahead and use that number. You can ignore it if you want, or you can use that number as a starting point to figure out how much you want to buy. And then as well as that, the estimated sales calculator comes in really handy, and that kind of goes a little bit hand in hand with that suggestion, because it's basically letting you know in a very simple way the sales for the item. Now, obviously, Amazon keep all that kind of data to themselves. So any deal analyzer will be able to do is give you an estimate. But BuyBotPro, we have a special subscription with Keeper. So we get a lot of data from Keeper. So we basically pay for a Keeper subscription, so you don't have to. So if you've got Keeper, you can basically bin off that subscription and just have BuyBotPro, because it has all the same things as Keeper does and more. And so we get a lot of data from Keeper. And so on the left-hand side of the estimated sales calculator, so in the on the left field there, it's the previous 90-day average sales. In the middle, it is the current sales based on the last 30 days. And as you hover over that, it gives you estimates of the sales over the last 12 months. Then using all of this data, we are basically then able to predict the average sales over the next 90 days in the box on the right. And what we do as well is we underestimate that figure, and we think that's more truthful. We think that's better, because lots of other deal analyzers out there will overestimate that number and give you something that is kind of unrealistic. So then the amount that you buy based on information like that means that there is a higher chance that you'll end up stuck with stock and things that you're not able to shift because you bought more than you probably should have done. So having a slightly underestimated figure is much better, meaning that with that kind of information, the amount that you buy, you're more likely to sell. And if anything, you may end up selling more than you think you would, which is always the better way to go. So those are just a couple of the other things as well that I thought were definitely worth mentioning. And if you don't mind as well, one of my personal favorite features is something that is currently not on this page, because I don't think there's any variations. If you wouldn't mind finding a listing with variations, let's say Crocs, something like that, something where we've got lots of different colors, lots of different sizes. There is a variation.
I wanted to ask you, sure, just on that variation, I wanted to ask you, this 59, it represents per ace and per variation, right? It doesn't, because I know some will give you the sales estimator for the parent listing, and it's like,
that's right. So for every variation that you go on, it's going to give you all of the information in BuyBotPro will be relevant to that variation only. So it's not generalized, it's not summed up. It is the information for that particular variation. As you change to a different one, it will give you the information for that variation and so forth.
Okay, so we're here on the estimated sales calculator. Do you want me to click on a variation?
Underneath those sizes there's a little rectangle that says BuyBotPro, and then a button that says show variations. That button there, if you give that a click, basically it's gonna this is one of my personal favorite features. So it's so cool. So where you come onto a product with variations, so it could be that you've got a product with lots of different sizes, lots of different colors. It basically helps narrow down which of those items which of those is worth going ahead with, which one of those is worth looking at. So it gives you a table which tells you the all of the different variations, all the different sizes, prices, the sellers selling that particular variation, and it gives you the reviews as well. And so what I would advise when checking out this variations thing, again, this is so cool. It basically condenses what would be hours worth of work down to a couple of minutes when you're analyzing variations, and really handy for reverse sourcing as well. So at the top, you've got some headers, and on the very last one, I believe it says review percentage. If you click that header once, it filters it from low to high. If you click it again, it does it from high to low. And now obviously, it's going to be, the analysis is going to determine this 100%, but logically, and most of the time, the item with the most reviews, the most ratings, is going to be the most popular. So you can then narrow down which sizes, which colors, which variations you want to then focus on, and you can basically ignore the rest.
Right. So normally what I've articulated in other videos is I've always toggled by review. Like you were saying, generally speaking, the one with the most reviews has experienced the most sales. What I find fascinating here, that obviously I didn't realize that button was there, so I appreciate that. And it's always incumbent upon the seller to apply some discernment on all listings and do your due diligence and look at all the information data that you're exposed to. This is excellent, but this chart down here is, I think, it emphasizes everything and gives you a better idea of what's going on, because this white and black, you can see that has the most reviews, but the fact that you can look at this bar chart here and it shows you cumulatively what percentage of the sales share it's taking it's barred none. This you can get this information and make a general assumption, but this paints a picture for the whole listing in its entirety. So that's awesome. And then I was going to say, okay. So I guess for me personally, Matt, this estimated sales calculator, I think I've been so used to looking at like the charts and stuff that for me personally, I still look at the estimated sales to an extent, but I think that's why I've missed this, is because I use the extension and I look at graphs. I'll look at the estimated sales, but I've gotten so used to kind of identifying how much are already sold at this point. And I think also like my VAs will send me a lot of their leads. So I'm already looking at the estimated sales on the Google Sheets. I think that's why I hadn't had that tab open. But that's excellent. That's excellent. So these two you went through, I think, does that summarize the two other ones that I missed, or is there anything else?
I mean, the only other thing that I would say is worth mentioning is the manual sourcing accelerator, which basically gives you the ability to analyze a product on a retailer website. So let's say you were to go onto Walmart, for example, and then you go onto an item's product on an item page, and what you can then do is highlight the title of the item, right click, there's a BuyBotPro option, then it brings up a panel to the side which gives you search results on Amazon for that particular item and similar ones. Then you can go ahead and analyze from there, so you can do the analysis whilst you're sourcing, so you don't necessarily have to be on Amazon to do it.
Right. So instead of opening up another tab on Amazon, you kind of have the interface to the right. What you're saying. Okay. Gotcha. So if nothing else on here, I wanted to just go through just some reverse sourcing. All right. So one of the most common, sourcing tools that people are compelled to try is reverse sourcing, right? So you're going on someone else's store. So just for example purposes, let's go on this person's store here. As I was saying earlier, we're on someone else's store, just to reverse sourcing. Usually if some stores have a lead that you like, more than likely they might have other leads that you might be compelled to buy and list it yourself. And with BuyBotPro, I can do the same. I can do that exact thing and save time by viewing all the information here on the left that we alluded to earlier, and as well on the right. Now, as far as what's on the right side, Matt, is there a way? Now, I understand that you can get this kind of information right here, the buy box price, the seller's price. Is there a way we can look at charts on the right side here without going to the listing?
I mean, there's two ways that we can look at charts. So obviously underneath each item that the seller has, there's the quick look box, and obviously there's the BuyBotPro charts button there, same as what you had when you were searching for a product. But what you can then also do is on the right side, so in that side panel, if you click on BuyBotPro, it actually brings up the little blue BuyBotPro link. It brings up the panel that we were just looking at. And so in there as well, you then should be able to get to the sort of like mini charts that you get on the.
Perfect.
There you go.
Perfect. So now you can kind of, I mean, obviously you might have to go more into detail, but you can at least get an overview of what's going on, and allows you to paint a picture of this history, and you can just see from the very beginning if Amazon's on the listing. So you don't have to waste your time going onto a listing, finding out that Amazon's on the listing, then go backwards and backpedal, right? And I believe maybe not. Does it tell you if Amazon's on the listing on here as well, Matt?
So if Amazon are on that particular listing, there will be, so where it tells you the competition at the top, there will be a little orange box that will basically say Amazon, and it will tell you on there if they are on the listing.
Right. So it'll already tell you here, but at least if you go on those charts here, you'll be able to get a good correlation analysis of the listings buy box price and the sellers on the listing. So if you can immediately tell if the price has been tanking and the seller count has been rising. If you want to go more into detail, which you probably should, you can click on the listing and use the BuyBotPro extensions, other types of analysis. But here you can get a general overview while you're scrolling through someone's store. You don't want to make this quick. You don't want it to be dragged out. And BuyBotPro's side panel here makes that happen effectively. Is there anything as far as reverse sourcing, Matt? Because as far as when I reverse source, it's kind of all I really do is kind of go through these listings one by one. Right here, right? So it says sold by Amazon in the yellow. So there's no point even going to this on the listing unless you're daring enough to compete with Amazon, which sometimes you can if you are FBMing products. But generally speaking, if it's sold on Amazon, you're not going to go and compete with them. So this is a great way to save time by having that feature pop up. Anything else, Matt, that I'm missing?
I mean, so the only other thing that you may find helpful, particularly with reverse sourcing, is on that panel to the right again. So just underneath the search bar, there's two tabs. So one of them is for the search results, and the other one should say store details. So if you give that a click, it basically gives you sort of an overview of that particular seller that you're looking at. So it's kind of sneaky in a way. So it shows you the top brands that they sell and the top categories that they sell in.
Cool.
So if you're looking for inspiration, or there's got to be a reason why those top brands are their top brands. So you can sort of be like really sneaky and see, which ones are their best ones. And then that can give you sort of like a lead, as to which kind of brands, which categories you can also look at as well, which ones doing well for them, can potentially work well for you too.
Kind of like it's like a store analyzer, if you will, right? You can
you
can easily save the seller's name. Oh no, it goes to it. You can save the seller's name and then the seller's ID right here as well instead of running up to the URL. Cool. All right. In summary, with BuyBotPro, I want to ask you a few questions just to give some context on BuyBotPro. Could you let me know, when did BuyBotPro begin providing services to Amazon sellers?
Yeah, so BuyBotPro started in 2018. It is sort of like the first original deal analyzer of its kind that came into being, and most of the other deal analyzers that you see, all of them came after BuyBotPro. So we are the original deal analyzer. A lot of the functions and features that you might have experienced in other deal analyzers were invented by us. So things, for example, like the sales heat map and such, the ability to sort of like link up a Google sheet, things like that. A lot of what you see in BuyBotPro was invented by us. And sort of led the way and inspired other deal analyzers to add sort of similar things into their softwares as well.
Gotcha. Okay. I think when I first heard about BuyBotPros from one of my buddies, and when I was looking at y'all's website and the features, I was just like, wow, this is such a powerful tool. And that's why it compelled me to go ahead and start getting a subscription. So feedback from other sellers, I'm sure you get a bunch of feedback, compliments, complaints, whatever. As far as the feedback goes, what is the most overwhelming favorite element a BuyBot Pro?
It's quite hard to say because, as I say,
Yeah.
everyone's got different things about it that is like a favorite for them. I mean, there's some testimonials up on the BuyBotPro website if you were interested in sort of like reading up on what actual people have said about it. But it's hard to sort of like pinpoint exactly what it is that people say, because people say so many nice things about it. Lots of people will mention about the charts, how easy they are to read, and compared to something like Keeper. Someone recently told me that they struggle with the Keeper charts, but they've got no problem with the BuyBotPro charts. And on the back of that, they like the fact that they don't have to have the Keeper subscription; they can just have those same functions in BuyBotPro and more. Lots of people love the fact that there are the Google Sheets, that there is the Google Sheets functionality in there and the ability to add as many as you like. People do mention as well about the IP radar, the eligibility, how easy it is to gauge such important information right away, right off the bat. All of the sort of like fees and such we get directly from the Amazon calculator itself. So whenever they update it, whenever Amazon update any fees, anything like that, we get all of that right away. There's nothing that we have to do. There's no updates. We get all of that information right away. So it's always 100% accurate.
Awesome.
People love the variations feature. Again, that's one of my personal favorites. People love the fact that you can actually both source and analyze on a retailer website page. And quite recently as well, we introduced the BuyBot wholesale feature. So this is where you can upload wholesale sheets to BuyBotPro and get a bulk analysis of all of the items on that sheet. So again, what would be hours worth of work is condensed to minutes. And so many people have come back to us recently, upon that being released and gone, you know what, this is an amazing feature. And there's separate softwares that they were using for that sort of thing. And they now no longer need to, because it's part of BuyBotPro. People have the VA toolbox, the ability to manage VAs within the software. There's so many things about BuyBotPro that people love. So we get all kinds of positive feedback constantly about pretty much everything in the software.
Yeah. The bevy of different elements on the extension, it pales in comparison to other extensions that I've found, and that's why I had you come on here, because I had to tell people, it's the amount of information is just insane. So whenever I've reached out to y'all's customer service, and I often receive a response rather quickly. So do you all have a pretty high importance on customer support?
Yeah, we do. It is very important for us to have a good customer support system in place. The average response time is 5 to 10 minutes. So there's chat options, there's email options, there's help articles, there's lots of stuff in place for support. There's lots of videos out there. But yeah, we do always aim to get back to everyone as quickly as possible. The support is 24/7 as well. So we've got customer support representatives all across the world to accommodate for all different time zones. So whenever you reach out, even at unthinkable hours in the morning, there will be someone there to help you with whatever problem you might be facing.
Right. And so that kind of goes into my next question. Is it looks like you guys provide services both in the US and the EU, right? And sometimes when that's the case, sometimes I think, well, how much importance are they giving to US versus EU? And I've asked you that question. It sounds like you guys give equal attention to both markets. And the benefit of that is you're going to have someone up, right, for EU support, and they can obviously help with just any sort of functionality issues that someone's facing, because they're awake during when US is asleep, and vice versa, right?
Yeah, exactly. The US is just as important. Whilst we are a UK based company, no one is any less important. And like the US sales tax function in BuyBotPro was put together with the help of actual US sellers, so that way we know that we are getting it 100% right for all of our US clients. And so yeah, everyone is very important to us. We want to be able to help absolutely everyone that we can. So yeah, EU, US, it doesn't matter. We want to help.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for answering those questions. We're going to now transition over to the repricer, Profit Protector Pro, and we're going to try to just save some time here. We're going to try to make this a little bit quicker than the BuyBotPro extension. So let me ask you some questions, Matt, and then we'll jump over to my screen here. When did Profit Protector Pro begin providing services to Amazon sellers?
So Profit Protector Pro was the next project after BuyBotPro, and it came into being in 2020.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and I'll ask you this question, but I might just answer it myself. Sellers, even sellers who just started selling on Amazon and they have 10 listings, you're going to want to still get a repricer just because you don't want to constantly manually update your prices, and you're competing with a bunch of other sellers who have a repricer. So you're competing against AI essentially, and you don't want you're not going to say you're going to lose, but if the price is constantly being volatile and the people are changing the prices, you don't want to be caught doing it manually. A, you're going to spend a lot of time doing that, and B, you probably won't win the buy box as much. As far as Profit Protector goes, Matt, you guys have an AI plan. Also, is there a rules plan as well?
Yeah, so regardless of the plan that you sign up to, I mean, the only difference between the plans is the amount of listings that you can have turned on and actively have repricing. But regardless of what payment plan you are on, what subscription you're using, you will have access to both rule based and AI strategies. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So why do you believe Profit Protector Pro stands out amongst other repricers in the market?
So I mean, the clue itself is sort of in the name. So this we assessed that there was a problem. There was a space in the marketplace, and there was a problem that lots of sellers were facing. Regardless of using a repricer or not. So a lot of sellers using a repricer would find that their reprices would literally just, it would focus on winning that buy box regardless of the cost. Quite literally. So the focus for these other repricers would be things like just winning you the buy box, and the profit didn't really matter so much. It would just, and then this is where price tanking comes in, and then it would be automated price tanking, which sucks. And so this is a problem that we assessed and we filled with Profit Protector Pro. So in a nutshell, the whole thing with Profit Protector Pro is to, yes, increase your sales to help you win the buy box, but it's also just as focused on increasing your profits. So unlike other reprices where they will win you the buy box and that's it, the job is done for them, Profit Protector Pro will not stop until it's made you the best possible profit it can. So once it wins the buy box, it doesn't end there. It will then try its very best to bump up the price as best as it can to make you even more money. And so this is again the problem that we came to solve. And we did. Profit Protector Pro works amazingly, all thanks to these strategies that it has.
And I can attest to that. This is unbiased as I can. I've tried various repricers, and I do see that when I do win the buy box, I'll go back to the Seller Central and check the price, and sure enough, the price is raised, and that works marvelously for our profits as sellers, and it also bodes you well in competition because when your price goes up, other sellers are more inclined to also raise their price. So overall, our listings, then the ecosystem, if you will, for a listing, the price goes up. So great job there. What I'm going to do now, Matt, is share my screen on a listing that I have up from Profit Protector. Let's see here. So I have, I'm gonna blur all this out, but I have a listing here, and what I'm gonna do is just kind of run through how myself or my VA will update a particular listing on Profit Protector Pro and set up its AI setting. So we have our minimum. That's the minimum at the most minimum price that you want the repricer to go to, and the maximum, which is the most maximum price you want your repricer to go through. And you also have your break-even price, which is essentially where you sell and you can make your money back. Now, something I've also noticed here, there's a toggle actually where you can press on or off the repricing. Something I did not realize, Matt, and I was wondering, like, what is it working? And I realized there's a toggle here. So FYI there. And then down here, if you go to the different strategies, they have just a vast variety of different strategies to use as far as your AI strategies. So I'm going to go over, before I jump into the different strategies I use, is there anything that I missed on just the interface itself? By the way, the interface itself is very sleek and very easy to use. I've had other repricers as well where it wasn't such like a very visually appealing dashboard. You can see where title is, you can get your ASIN information, BSR, and just very modernized design. So whoever made this design, shout out to them for sure.
As far as filling in your minimum and maximums, of course you can do that manually, but what you can also do as well is set up rules within Profit Protector Pro. You can base it off of the buy box price, off of ROI, off of break even, and you can
Is it this
get it
one?
to, yeah, you can get it to,
Okay.
based on those rules. So you could say you want your minimum to be, I don't know, 20% above break even. You want your maximum to be the buy box plus, I don't know, 60%, something
Interesting.
like that. So you can base it on whatever you want. You make your rules, and then basically with just by clicking on automate, Profit Protector Pro will work out your break even, your minimum and maximum prices for you, and you can automate it for the item in multiple marketplaces. If you're selling in multiple marketplaces, you can do it for just the item there and then, just that particular entry, or you can actually do it for everything in your inventory as well, which will save you a lot of time filling in your min and max prices. But yeah, the interface is great. You can get it to take into account what it is that you want it to take into account. So if you're using it as a UK seller, you've got obviously the PAN option there, but you can switch that to EFN. And then you can toggle that on in order to basically apply that into the calculations for the estimated profit ROI, and it also gets taken into account for your min and max as well when you automate that. There's a history button there as well, so if you are wondering what exactly the repricer is doing, what prices it's requesting, why it's doing it, it will give you a separate window like you just saw there that tells you exactly what it's doing, so you can sort of like keep an eye on what it's doing. You can learn about what it's doing, why it's doing it. But yeah, as far as what we can see there on the interface, that's the only bits I wanted to add. They're quite useful, I think.
Yeah, this activity tool is really cool because it'll tell you exactly what repricer settings, what the repricer settings activity has been on each listing. It'll tell you if it'll also suggest to you on the right column if you should probably lower your minimum so the repricer can go to a more minimum price. Essentially, it's telling you, hey, this listing's price is probably tanking. You should probably lower your minimum. You're not going to get any sales at this moment. But that's again where you need to apply some discernment. Go to the listing, and like what I tell my VA right now is, yeah, price might be bottoming out from previous month, but we're about to hit a peak season here where demand's going to jump up, right? So I'm holding my minimums where they are right now, just because I know from personal experience that demand's going to creep up and the price is going to go up. But throughout most of the year, if your repricer is telling you, hey, I want to go to your minimum or lower than your minimum, maybe the price is tanking and maybe you want to just adjust your minimum, right? So as far as the strategies, Matt, what I use most of the time, first I'll go through my FBM listings. I really do like the fact that you guys have a separate settings for FBM listings versus FBA listings. So the slow movers that I have that are FBM, I will choose as dynamic profit builder. It seems like this is great since it's already moving slow. It's at my own house, right? So I'm not worried about inventory fees or anything like that. So I can wait it out. But even if I go to this aggressive sales generator, what I thought would be like, okay, it's probably going to go to the minimum. That hasn't been the case. It actually doesn't go to the minimum. It goes higher than the minimum. So I'm not sure if it's accounting for my delivery and my promise, which is usually faster than the other sellers. But this has been a pleasant surprise for me, where it not going straight to the minimum. I'm still getting good profits. Had I even went to, obviously it's not going to give me as much as a profitable selling price as this one, but faster sales and still accounts for profit, which I think this is a great, these two strategies is what I use most of the time. And I'll also use this balanced sales accumulator, which in my opinion, I think it does a little bit of best of both worlds, right? As far as FBA, I'll choose either the aggressive sales generator or the dynamic profit builder. Essentially the same concept, right? The dynamic profit builder, if I see that the listing, it's not accruing a lot of sellers, the seller account is medium relative to its history of sellers, then I'll click this dynamic profit builder because I know I'm not too concerned with trying to get sales out, more so just accruing the profit. However, if it's something where there was a sale that took place and I'm trying to get it to the Amazon FBA warehouse, and as soon as it gets to the Amazon FBA warehouse, I want it sold as fast as possible, then I'll go ahead and choose this aggressive sales generator. Matt, is there and also this match buy box? I will choose match buy box if I just want to constantly hit the buy box and compete with other sellers in an effort to kind of communicate to the other sellers on the listing too. Let's all match the buy box. Let's all get the buy box evenly. But those are kind of the two that I mainly use. Matt, is there some things that you suggest sellers to use?
I mean, with strategies,
I say I know there's so many here, so just highlight the one that you recommend.
I mean, with strategies, it is going to be different for everyone. Everyone will have different preferences, different things that work well for them. And that's the great thing about having so many strategies, is that it's going to accommodate for all kinds of different needs. And even if there is something that you want Profit Protector Pro to do specifically when it comes to repricing, you can even build your own strategy using the custom strategy function. So there is something in there for everyone. But as one that I personally recommend for anyone that isn't sure, I would always advise the balance sales accumulator. And of course, if it is an FBM item, then use the merchant fulfilled balance sales accumulator. So there is one for each kind of fulfillment. The reason why I say that is because it's a great starting point. So it favors a match buy box kind of game plan, which is excellent. And if that particular repricing method isn't proving to be as fruitful as hoped for on a particular listing, it will slightly shift its approach and then start competing with your key competitors on the listing, slightly undercutting them to put you in a more favorable position to try and basically win that way. So that's what I love about that, is the fact that it has so much flexibility to it that it will try shifting its approach slightly to win you the buy box. And then obviously once it has done that, it will try and raise the price as best as it can. It is just as sales focused as it is profit focused. It does lean a tad more towards sales, just a little bit, but it is split more or less down the middle in terms of its focus. And that's why I say it's a great starting point. And from there, you might decide that you love the balance strategy and that's the one that you're going to use. Or from there, you might think, I could be a bit more sort of aggressive on this listing. So then, switch it up a little bit to aggressive. Or you might think, you know what, I could afford to be a bit more sort of like passive and wait for the buy box to come to me. So then you might set a more passive profit focused strategy. So it's a great starting point, a great strategy to use. That's one that I'd personally recommend.
Okay. Yeah. So if you're not sure if you're more so profit focused or sales focused, you might be compelled to use this balanced sales accumulator, because it sounds like what you're saying is it has the best of both worlds. And based on what the pricing history and the sales history is, then you can maybe have this as a benchmark before you move on to another setting. But I'm glad you told me that. Yeah, I think like I said, I've been going to these two based on the listing and whatnot, but this might be a good starting point that I might start using as well. Hey, I wanted to ask, could you run through what the significance of this automation setting is?
So the automation is basically a way that it's a way. It's in the name, so it's a way that you can get Profit Protector Pro to automate certain functions on a particular listing. So it in essence is going to save you time and save you tasks to do. So in the automation section, you can build an automation. So it's going to run you through. Basically, it's got a list of scenarios in there. So what you'll be able to do with that is add a scenario. So let's say, for example, if no sales have occurred for, and then you can enter in the amount of time. So let's say no sales have occurred for 3 days. You build that into the automation, then you choose the action. So if it gets to the point where you've not made sales for 3 days, the automation will kick in. And let's say you were using a more profit focused strategy, and there's been no sales for 3 days. The automation, you can have it set to switch strategy to aggressive sales generator. So then if there's been no sales for 3 days, the automation kicks in, changes the strategy, and then it will use that. And then as soon as that specific scenario is no longer relevant, so let's say you then start making sales, it will then hand it back to the original strategy that you set, which doesn't necessarily mean that you would lose the buy box in that particular scenario, because that strategy, the aggressive one, might have won it for you. Then it hands it back to the profit focused one, and then that profit focused one can hopefully maintain a hold over it and perform the function that it has, whichever profit focused one that you've chosen. So you can build an automation as simple or as in depth you like. You can add multiple scenarios to the same one. You can make as many automations as you like, and you can apply them to your listings as such and get them to do whatever it is that you want them to do. So it's a great way of having like a backup plan in place, or just, instead of you monitoring the item, checking when it's sold, set something like that up in the automations and leave it for Profit Protector Pro to do.
Right. And I don't even think it's a backup. Like, so there's so much competition on Amazon. So it's really incumbent upon you, the seller, to use as much tools and software that you can and do things that others aren't doing. And I'm not even doing the automation thing. That's why I saw it there and I hadn't had time to look into it. So I wanted to ask you on this interview here. And it sounds like what I was alluding to earlier of me going back and forth, I can have that automated. So obviously when we first want to have a listing out there and it gets checked in on Amazon, you want to try to get as much profit as possible, but you know that there's a sale that just happened. So the sellers are coming, right? So maybe you want to do something where you have the dynamic profit builder the first couple of days. And then based on your own experience, you know that's price is going to start getting affected negatively soon when the sellers are coming onto the listing. And then maybe you want it to automatically switch over to the aggressive sales generator. Is that right? It's kind of how it works, Matt?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different actions that you can take in there. There's not just switch strategy. You can go to your minimum, go to your maximum. You can go a percentage under a certain price. So there's lots of different things that you can do with an automation.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. Very impressive. Very impressive. All right. So just kind of wrapping things up here. As far as the repricer goes, as I alluded to earlier, I love the fact that it has FBM settings as well as FBA settings. Recently, I've been doing a lot of FBM listings, so that I found was very impressive and very useful in my personal Amazon business. Now, there's other Amazon businesses where they're all focused on FBM. And if that's the case, you have a setting there. If all you do is FBA, you have your settings there as well. And the automation tool is excellent too if you're trying to save time. Delegate that kind of work to even your VAs. So now they save time and they can allocate their time into sourcing or more significant admin tasks as well, whether that be, IP complaint, addressing authenticity complaints, making templates, POAs, things that just are more important to handle than just constantly changing your prices, which have a lot of impact on your sales. But if you can automate that, that's the route you want to take. And that's what I've opted into using their repricer. All right. So Matt, any new features that are upcoming for either software?
I don't know what I'm going to be safe to say, if I'm totally honest. With the release of BuyBot Wholesale, that was worked on for quite a long while before its initial release. Now that's in the software, and part of what we're proud of as well is the fact that we are open to suggestions and feedback. So if there's anything that anyone uses that they think, oh, I like this, but I wish it could also do this as well, or oh, here's a completely new idea for you, we do actively listen to feedback and suggestions. And half of what is in the software is actually came from user suggestions because you guys are actually using it. So of course we want to make it as valuable as it can be for everyone using it. So this is where we do listen. We add them to lists, we have them reviewed, then we implement them into the softwares where we can. So as far as what's happening in the timeline, the next thing that I'm aware of is a brand new look for BuyBotPro.
Just when I started getting used to it, huh? hopefully the core elements are probably going to stay the same.
The core elements will stay the same. It's just sort of like the general look. So it won't be completely alien for you. It'll probably just have a nicer feel to it.
Maybe minimizing coding, I guess, because I do notice that the extension pops up really quickly. So maybe it'll come up even quicker with the update.
Yeah, that's the aim, to make it as speedy as possible. Yeah.
Speaking of speedy, something I forgot to mention, the repricer. Like I said, this is not indictment on any other repricers, just unbiased opinion. I've noticed on the repricer, Profit Protector Pro, it updates the price, your min maximum. As soon as you set that strategy, updates it rather quickly. So, shout out to whoever had that set up. But that's a really cool feature because a lot of times I'll change the setting on a listing that just came active, and I'll go to seller's account or seller central account and update the price there as well. But with the repricer, I've noticed I'll set the price and I'll check 3 minutes later and boom, it's already updated. So that's something that should be mentioned. Impressive. Okay. So can you just briefly talk about the socials that you guys have, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we've got some Facebook groups, so you're more than welcome to join those. So, if you literally just search at BuyBotPro Profit Protect Pro on Facebook in the groups, you'll find us. You can join those. There's lots of discussion in there, lots of general sort of like seller talk as well. Lots of people share their victories in there, any sort of like questions. So the Facebook groups are wonderful little communities. Obviously, you can follow us on TikTok and Profit Protector Pro. There's new videos daily throughout the week, so lots of like little hints and tips, sort of like very quickly, very upfront. And obviously for more in-depth tutorials, we've got our YouTube channel. So if you just look at BuyBotPro Profit Protector Pro on YouTube, you'll find no end of tutorials. Within the softwares themselves, they do actually have training videos as well. So there's lots and lots and lots of help resources out there for you. We've also got a couple of podcasts going. So we've got the Online Arbitrage podcast. You can search that up on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. And it's just general online arbitrage topics and talk. That comes out once a month. And then once a week, I run a show called the Retail Arbitrage Podcast. So it's more focused on obviously retail arbitrage, but there are other sort of like general Amazon topics that get talked about there as well. That comes out weekly. The YouTube videos are weekly as well.
What's
so
the
there's
name?
there's lots and lots of fresh content coming out all the time. So the two podcasts, the Online Arbitrage Podcast and the Retail Arbitrage Podcast.
Oh, okay, that's the name of them.
Yeah, that's the name of them.
Okay, gotcha. Awesome. Yeah, I think, and I'll link all the mentioned links in the description, the YouTube as well. Much more detailed guides on the YouTube that I've gone through as well. So make sure to check that out once you've gotten the extension. Just want to say, I really try to strive my channel to be sincere and authentic as possible. And when I tried this extension, the reason I got mad over here is because I was so surprised and impressed with the amount of information the extension has, and saving all that money where you could have bought, a lot of those elements that I mentioned earlier, there's whole separate companies that sell that service. So the fact that you have all that in-house on the extension not only saves you time, but the quality of the data is also impressive, and all that compounded together in one package, I think will save you a lot of time, money, and just allocating those tasks to your VAs. So Matt, thank you so much for coming on. Hope to have you on again sometime soon to go through more of the software is upcoming. Everyone else watching, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.